Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to my next episode of Cedarwood Valley. And in this episode, we're going to be continuing in our work in Camp Cedarwood, specifically working on, finishing up Coal Cracker and the station that, like I said in the previous episode, I kind of want to make sort of like a weenie of the area. And it's not going to be like a crazy huge one, it's just going to be one that I hope draws the most attention from the guests. As you can see from the line, it does look that way so far, even without the station around this coaster. So you can see underneath this roof here, there's a section that's already built. And I did it off camera, and what I did there is I took those little log pieces, you can see me playing with them now, and I kind of wanted to make it like a log cabin look. The actual inspiration from this came from me just searching on Google, like, the center building for a camp, like a summer camp. I used to go to summer camp all the time. I used to go every single year for, like 8 weeks out of the entire summer, which that's pretty much the entire summer for me. And I loved it as a kid. And I didn't really want to make any of the buildings that I had at my summer camp because they weren't as interesting or as, I didn't think they'd be as functional. They wouldn't have as great as a function as this one did in terms of this coaster station. So you can see that I did kind of like a very basic layout, but I didn't make it, even on either side, and I did that on purpose. You can see here me skipping the portion again of where all it was me filling in that top section with those wooden, those logs there. It just would, take a little bit of time and didn't really feel like you wanted to see that. So we're on to the next part in this overhang. This is the front side of the coaster station, where the exit would come down as a ramp, and I just kind of wanted to make it like sort of like almost like it was a balcony, but not really. It was kind of the look I was going for. So you can see me just hopping over to the other side and doing pretty much the same thing. I actually added more detail to the front side and the back side because that's kind of how you would see it in a real park, and that still is one of like the big goals of me creating this area specifically, is to create this added sense of realism and a little bit of history to the park. I kind of hinted at that, maybe that this Cedarwood or Camp Cedarwood was here either before or with the beginning of the amusement park section as well. And I'm going to go a little more into that probably in the next episode, where I add a huge section, or I'm planning to add a very big section to Camp Cedarwood, kind of right where that little octopus ride used to be. I keep forgetting the name of it. But yeah, so here I'm just making kind of a more interesting looking fence. It's nothing special. It's just two fences overlaid against each other with the color scheme that I had in mind. And so now I'm going to talk to you about a little thing I'm starting to call, stack the layers. And that actually comes from a YouTube video by someone called Aces to Aces, and it has nothing to do with Planet Coaster. It actually has to do with production of music and sounds, and you'd stack the layers so that they would sound better. So I'm going to coin the term for Planet Coaster, stacking the layers in terms of scenery on your buildings. As you can see, there wasn't much detail on this building at all. It was pretty plain. I used a lot of normal pieces. I didn't do custom roofs. I did do the custom walls, I guess. But, everything was still kind of looking very, very plain, very, very normal. And so you can see me going through here and just stacking the layers, adding all of those accents. And I actually skipped that part. Unfortunately, I had way too much footage for this episode. I still wanted to keep it a little bit shorter like last episode. I feel like that's it's easier to take in for you guys. And I mean, if you guys want to see like everything that I do, drop a comment and say, listen, I'm okay with the 22-minute videos. I just want to see all the content. But for this video, I decided to cut out some things, which was, in that case, it was me copying over all of my quote-unquote stacking on either side and all the way around the entire building. So now we're working on this cattle pen here. Cattle pen just means, it's just where you wait in those little tight corners, which are very, very common in pretty much every single amusement park. And so I wanted to keep the same style. You can see the slightly, well, it's just not even, and that's the same way that Coaster Station was made. And I think that fit very well. Obviously the same sort of, stacking, if you want to say, if I'm stacking the layers again, with the same colors, the same styles, just to give it a whole feel of the area, to be almost unique, apart from the other Camp Cedarwood parts, most particularly being, the buildings that are above the flat rides that I kind of modeled after Oh, I can't remember the name. Well, I'll post the name right now on the screen because I'm an idiot. I can't remember it right now. So now I'm going into this next part, along with this whole stacking the layers thing. This is actually recorded at a couple different days, and I decided that this was just not good enough for a weenie, and clearly it wasn't. And what I do here, makes me a lot happier with the final outcome. So you can see me kind of looking over to my main structure, or my main entrance structure, and I actually end up taking the spire that I custom built for that, and ended up copying and pasting it over here in this tower over here. So here's me taking it over here, and kind of removing the colors I didn't want, keeping the colors I wanted, and actually completely editing the structure from the inside and out to make it more manageable and more usable in the sense that it would fit in here in Camp Cedarwood instead of the park entrance. And so kind of the whole idea behind this was just to make it more interesting. I don't know if it has a function, but in terms of what I could say it's a function of is if this was a real camp, and I'm just going to say it is, Camp Cedarwood would have this main building or used to have this main building, which was then converted into this coaster station, where this big tower up here, where you can see me only putting in a clock in a couple of seconds. On the inside, we're going to say there was a bell. And if any of you have ever been to summer camp, you know that you kind of live life based on that bell. I actually haven't been in too many years to visit my summer camp, or actually just go back up into the Appalachian Mountains where it is, to kind of relive kind of all the things I liked about it. But yeah, one of the things that you can't forget about summer camp is that everything ran, or at least the summer camp I went to was ran based on like the bell system. So we're just going to say that this was like, the main building that actually housed that bell tower up there. And maybe these were like maybe administrative offices up in this tower with these great views of Camp Cedarwood below it. So now you can see me kind of going into my next layer of stacking the layers, this time in the tower itself. I kind of wanted to keep all of these things very similar among the tower, the building, and the little building above the cattle pen. So I again take out the section where I copy and paste everything around, and now I'm going to go into my custom sign making of the coal cracker sign. So you can see here I'm sinking in these rocks into the ground, so just the tips are out, so I can create my own sort of font. Unfortunately, what I didn't realize with using these is that they do not render in at a certain distance away. So you might see it in some of the pictures that I've posted on, or I will post on Reddit, or maybe even in some of the scenic shots here, that it doesn't actually render in like the entire coal cracker sign. You can still read that it says coal, but what you see here, where it's it's very obvious, isn't necessarily the case for the rest of it. So now I'm just going to put a backdrop into this coal cracker sign, and I wanted to make a very rustic looking sign, like something that wasn't really maintained. So I made these wood planks, and then I flipped the whole thing up, and changed the colors. And this is when I went in. I couldn't really figure out what I wanted to do for the cracker part, but I ended up settling on this sign, and I'm not even sure if I like that reddish wood color I did there. So now here's me just kind of finishing up this area around the sign, and like I said, I cut out a lot from my actual gameplay. I did so much off camera that you'll never see until it's well, you'll see it, but you'll never see me create it. It'll just be in the scenic footage at the end of this video. Which, I mean, if you guys want to see that kind of stuff, then you can post in the comments, say like I want to see what you do for your smaller details, because I didn't add a lot of the stuff about my smaller details. So you can see me, I cut out me, putting hedges around the rest of the queue and the exit line. And so now this is what I made for the brake run, and I actually copied and pasted it, and this is what the kind of the template for the rest of the bridges along the ride itself are going to be themed after. So you can see it still has that same fence that I made in the original building from the coaster station, and that continuity of style was something that was really important that I needed to have in this area to set it apart from the rest of Camp Cedarwood. So here's I think I cut out right after this. I actually do this to both lift hills. I do it to all the sections that cross each other. And you see, yeah, I skipped there. And now we're gonna go to the top here. And now I just kind of like want to create some eye candy at the top of this mountain. And so I ended up. This actually took me a very long time to figure out. I actually copied the tower from the station and tried to put it up here, and it just looked awful. I played around with that for a little bit, and then I settled on this sort of shape of a building. And then I thought, I didn't really know what I'm going to do for this top here. And then I thought, why not just build a dome? So this is me going in and building a dome. If you've never, learned how to build a dome before, this is a very sped up version of it. But basically what you want to do is you want to create the frame and then rotate the frame a certain amount of degrees. So I think mine ended up being 45 degrees. So I would have, I think, 8 sections. And so then you isolate this one part of the section, and then you fill in the entire part of the section with whatever, color of wood or whatever texture you want. So I'm going to skip that part, and you can see me fully covered it in. And actually, the top part of this dome is not covered by the same planks. It's actually covered by the wooden corbels to actually fit the section. So once you finish the one section, you copy it over to the other side, and then you use the feature to rotate them all around the same axis and then create a perfect dome. And this was very quickly explained, so I wouldn't be surprised if you guys have no idea what I'm talking about. But if you are interested in creating domes as small as that one or as big as ones that you'd see on big buildings, I would recommend watching. There's a tutorial by Silverette that goes over both domes and spires, and it actually helped me a lot in my creation of my spire that I put on the top of the coaster station, on top of the tower of the coaster station, and in the dome here. So now you can see me filling in this section here in between the mountain. So now this actually was pretty random in terms of my placement of these things, but I kind of like that style. It wasn't really fitting in. Everything was kind of built there to look like it wasn't necessarily, too crazily planned out. It was sort of, this is where we have to put it, so let's just see what we can do in creating this structure, because the mountain is such a unique shape. And I really wanted to have this sort of feature in here, and so I actually cut out all the rest of the parts where the overhangs come over and the bridges are. But I did finish every single overhang has those sort of big beam structures in them, and that the way that you saw me do it there was the way I did it with all the rest. So this is actually coming to the end of the time lapse part here. Like I said, I did a lot off camera, but I'm gonna leave you here with some scenic shots. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, but I will see you guys next time in Cedarwood Valley.